So stay nice and chewy on the inside. I mean, that don't make no sense right there. For the first recipe I wanted to test out with my new keto flour, I wanted to do a classic, the Nestle Toll House Chocolate Chip Cookie recipe. The only modifications I made to this is I cut the recipe in half because I have to be constantly creating new desserts and stuff, and I don't need that many cookies sitting around. So I'm just gonna cut the recipe in half, so if you want the original recipe, just double it. But I'm using all the original ingredients that they call for. Well, sugar-free chocolate chips, but I mean, still, they act the same. So if you want a classic chocolate chip cookie, keto style, here you go. So everybody knows the Nestle Toll House chocolate chip cookie. You could buy them in the store in the refrigerated section in the little rectangular yellow thing. They're already broken apart. You just break them off, put them on the sheet, or they give you the recipe to make them yourself. I don't believe I'll be doing all those carbs in the little yellow pack, so I'm gonna make it myself. The first thing the recipe says to do is preheat the oven to 375 degrees. So I'm gonna do that. Now y'all leave me a comment down there if you want me to try more traditional recipes using my keto ingredients. Haven't really done a whole lot of that. I've kind of recreated a lot of things, but I'll be glad to go in and test this stuff out. Just let me know. So the first thing you're gonna need for this recipe is, of course, a yellow mixing bowl. I'm pretty sure they have that in the original recipe too. Yellow mixing bowl, pretty sure it's in there somewhere. Anyway, to that, you're gonna take my brand new keto flour. Now, what I like to do, whether it's the flour or the sweetener, is just give it a little shake every time before you use it. I don't have that fancy processing equipment like those big manufacturing plants that are trying to kill you have. So I just have to do the best I can, shake it up, make sure it's incorporated every time. So half this recipe is gonna be about a rounded cup of this flour. The original recipe was like 2 1/4 cups. So I'm just gonna round this off to a rounded cup. Then you're gonna need this whole bag of baking soda. Oh no, hang on. You only need a half a teaspoon of this baking soda. So I'm gonna put that right in here too. I do buy a lot of stuff at Sam's because it's cheaper like that. The next thing is, again, a half a teaspoon of salt. Now I'm using Redmond's real salt, which I'm sure is what they intended for you to use in that recipe, because I'm sure they cared about your health. And I'll link everything that I use down below in the description too for you. But this Redmond's real salt just has a high mineral content, and so I would definitely use this or pink Himalayan instead of that regular iodized salt that has been stripped of everything. And then we're just gonna mix this together. And I gotta go get my hand mixer, and then we'll go to the next step, and I'll be right back. So now what I'm gonna do is just transfer this over to a red bowl because I really want to use my yellow mixing bowl to mix with. If not, it just ain't gonna come out right. So I'm just gonna put all that there. We'll set this off to the side, and I'm gonna add in a stick of butter. Now this butter has been sitting out at room temperature for a while, so it is room temp. You wanna make sure it's nice and soft before you go trying to beat it up. You're gonna have butters flying all over the place. So then I'm gonna get my 1/3 cup of brown sweetener and just pack it down in there just like you would regular brown sugar. Put that in. Put in a 1/3 cup of the regular granulated sweetener. And I'll leave the links to these down below if you haven't made these yet and you wanna make your own sweetener and save a bunch of money. So just pour that right in there as well. And then you're gonna need half a teaspoon of vanilla extract, beaver-free as always. I think I need some Save a Beaver t-shirts. And if y'all buy them, people will look at you just as crazy as they look at me. Oh, what in the world is that? But you know, beaver-free is the life for me. You know, the little animal. Anyway, let's go in right here. And what I'm gonna do is just kind of break this butter up a little bit before I mix it. That's gonna make it a little easier. And hopefully it won't fling it all over the place. There we go. Now, I'm gonna put this on a low speed. Start to beat this up proper. And you can always go in with a little spatula like this and scrape the sides down to make it a little easier to combine. You know, because the butter's soft, but it's still butter. So then after that, I just scrape the sides down. And it says to go ahead and add in your egg at this point. So I just throw my egg in there and we'll beat it up again. Now this recipe does say you can add in some nuts here as well, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna do a regular traditional cookie. And that's why I did a little bit of more flour in there, because it said if you don't do the nuts, add like 1 or 2 tablespoons, I think it said, extra flour. So I figured that rounded cup of that would be fine. You know, back in the day, they had to do this stuff by hand, so I'm real thankful for these little beaters. I didn't really need a good arm workout today. Just make sure you scrape your sides down so you can get all that in there proper. And get all this back off of there. Hey, it's getting baked. Don't mind me if I lick my fingers. It's looking pretty good right there. Now I'll take my spatula and just get off as much as I possibly can, but you know, you gotta have a little bit on the beater still to lick. And then it says to stir in your chocolate chips. So I'm just gonna get my half cup of these. Yeah, maybe a couple more. Now tell me that doesn't look like the dough that comes in that little yellow container. Maybe it's because it's in this yellow bowl, but I think that's looking pretty good right there. All right, and then we got that just mixed together like that. I'm gonna grab a baking sheet, line it with some parchment paper, and we'll move on to the next step. So now this recipe says an ungreased cookie sheet. So if you think you want to put it on a cookie sheet that looks like that, feel free. For me, I'm gonna use a little parchment paper on here. Now that's going against the recipe, but I don't believe it's gonna hurt the way they turn out, so I'll go ahead and do it anyway. Now I just like to ball it up like that, unball it, and that just helps it stick. And if you want to donate to my GoFundMe for some new baking pans, feel free. There's a buy me a coffee down there on the bottom. I'll still honestly use it for the ingredients instead of this, but you know, as long as you put parchment paper on it, I feel like it'll be just fine. And then I'm gonna take my little cookie baller. It says to drop by a rounded tablespoon on the ungreased baking sheet. So I'm not gonna grease this, but you don't wanna put it on a pan that looks like that. So I'm just gonna grab it in my cookie baller like that. Looks pretty round. So we'll just throw it on there like that. Just try to make them all about the same size. And like I said, this is half the recipe. This is gonna make a plenty of cookies, at least for me. But you can go on double this if you want to. Ooh, that was a bit much. Let me go back and do that again. Maybe like that. It looked like quite the large cookie there. Is it just me, or are these getting bigger as they go along? Sometimes I get kind of impatient baking stuff, so you never know what might happen. Now, I'm gonna put these a little closer together here, and we'll see what happens. Now this is well, I'll put it down in the description what size this pan is. This is definitely what you want to use. I'm gonna get one more out of that. Gotta save a little bit for my own self. But there we go. So this should make 15 cookies. So directions say bake at 9 to 11 minutes or until golden brown, and then cool on the baking sheet for 2 minutes. Remove it to wire racks to cool completely. And that's what they're looking like right here. I mean, that's some little balls of goodness right there, right? I'm gonna take them, put them in the oven like it said for 9 minutes, and we'll check them after that. So after the 9 minutes is up, they're looking golden brown. What I'm gonna do is put them out just like this. They didn't quite break down as much as some of the traditional cookies do. So I'm gonna give them a little squish, just like that. I'm gonna throw it back in there for about 2 more minutes. And we'll see what we got. And those are looking good. So that's how they're looking right now. I'm gonna give them 1 more minute, and I think we good. So 1 more minute. The only modification I made is just smashing them down like that to this original recipe. So we'll see how they are in just a few minutes. See what these bad boys look like. And I think they could probably go for another minute, but I want to make sure these are a little bit chewy on the inside. So I'm gonna leave them right where they're at right here. So I'm gonna let these cool for 2 minutes, just like this says to do. Then I'm gonna move it over to these little cooling racks over here, and we will see what we got in just a few minutes. All right, so these things have cooled as much as I can stand. I gotta go in for one. I'm gonna use this one because it's an ugly one, so it ain't gonna be in my picture, so I can try it. Oh man, check this out. So stay nice and chewy on the inside. If you want it a little bit crispier, if you like the crispy chocolate chip cookies, this could have definitely gone for another minute or so, but this is what I like, so that's what I made. But you are absolutely gonna love these. Now, if you need a glass of milk to go with these, watch this video right here. I'll show you how I make my keto milk, which is just like whole milk, but without all the sugar. And I'll show you how to make the nanner pudding, which you're probably gonna wanna make next. That is ridiculous.